This video demonstrates how to clean fabric and apply EkoFill primer prior to top coating with the Stewart Systems 2-part polyurethane paint. This video is in two parts. Part 1 is the EkoFill application, and Part 2 is the application of our 2-part polyurethane top coat. Our wing is completely covered, and now we're ready to start the finish process. So the first thing that we want to do is to make sure that anything that we don't want painted is masked. So what we've done, got control cables coming out that operate the ailerons. I've taped those off, and that's the only thing on this wing that we're really worried about painting. Everything else is not a problem. So what we're going to do is thoroughly clean the fabric. It's been out in the shop, it's been touched with fingerprints, it's got dust on it. So prior to putting the EkoFill, we have to thoroughly clean it. So what we're going to do is take our heavy-duty cleaner, and that's in a little trigger spray bottle, and we diluted this 1 part of cleaner to about 18 parts of water. We have a damp cloth that's clean. You don't want to use the same one to rinse as we do to wash. So this one we're going to use to wash the fabric first, and then we'll come back with a clean rag in our bucket and rinse it. Okay, just a light, doesn't take much, just a couple little light sprays will do the job. And do one panel at a time. In this case, with the wing laying flat, I'm going to do the trailing edge half first and go right on around the leading edge, and we'll do everything in that rotation. It's easier to do it flat than it is if it's standing up. We want to be sure that the fabric is thoroughly dampened. We'll take a look at our cleaning rag in here and see if you get an idea of what we're getting off the fabric. It looks really good until you take a look at it, but it's really dirty. So that's why we have to do a very good job of cleaning it. You want to rotate your rag pretty on a regular basis, because you don't want to keep grinding the dirt down into the fabric. Okay, that's the last panel with the heavy-duty cleaner on it. So now we need to go back and rinse what we just cleaned. So the way we do that, take a bucket of nice clean water, because this you want to clean your rag fairly often, because we're getting rid of the soap residue, which is not a real problem, but that's why we put it on very lightly. So just with a nice damp cloth, we're going to do half of the wing again, just like we did with the cleaner. Start right here. And I'll usually do about 2 bays, and then rotate the rinse cloth. Turn it over. And what this is also doing is dampening the cloth, the Seconite, so when we come back with our filler coat, it's damp, and it lets the filler coat easily penetrate all the way through the fabric. You don't want it wringing wet, just damp. Okay, our fabric is all cleaned, it's rinsed, it's nice and damp, so now we're going to start with our EkoFill. So what we have to do, first thing, like any paint, you always have to mix it first. So we're going to thoroughly mix this. It's a very heavy-bodied primer filler. Takes just a couple minutes to stir it up really good. And so we want to be sure that after it's stirred, even though we're going to brush it, we want to be sure that we filter it. So we're going to pour it through a standard paint filter into our container. And we're going to use a 3-inch foam brush, and we're going to brush the first coat and we're going to go back and brush the second coat for one cross coat with a foam brush, and then we'll go into the spray gun application next after that. Okay, we're just using a standard painter filter, and we don't need a whole lot in there. We're going to put about a half a container. That's a little, it's about a pint and a half container. We're going to go about half full. That's probably enough to do that wing panel right there. Okay, we'll let that filter seal the top and drip. It'll be just fine like that. Okay, let's go out the wing. It really doesn't matter where you start on the wing, but it's easier if you'll do it flat. And so I usually do one half of it lengthwise first and then go right on around and do the second half. And when you start your brush, a brand new brush takes a few minutes to get, I call it to get broken in, because it doesn't hold the paint real well. But when you load your brush up, start with a tape and pay attention to which way your brush strokes are, because the second coat's going to be 90 degrees the way we apply this. So we're going to start your brush in motion before the filler goes on. We're going to apply it lengthwise. We're going to come back in just a minute. We're going to tip it sideways. And when your brush is full, stay away from the extreme edges because they'll have a tendency to run down. So what we do is start out in here like this. We'll get the filler all brushed into it. What we're doing is really getting the weave of that fabric filled up. Alright, and then we're going to come back after your brush has had a chance to unload some of that heavy buildup on it. Then we're going to come back and do the edges, and by doing that, you won't get a run going down to the other side. Come right on around to where we're a little bit over halfway, and then we'll go right on around and catch the leading edge. Same thing here. You will see on the first coat, you're going to still see a little bit of the glue showing through. You don't want a heavy buildup on this. What you want to do is just fill the weave. We're not going for a heavy buildup at all. If you try to do that, it just generates some problems because you're going to start getting runs in places that you don't want. And we'll just get the weave of the fabric filled with a brush. And then the spray gun, when we come back and start spraying, is what's going to give us our buildup and our nice finish on here. And when you get about 2 panels done like this, you can come back, and then what we want to do is just very lightly tip it. Make sure that we don't have any bubbles laying on it. Just one way with the brush. Don't go back and forth. But this is the tipping. Now the next coat, we'll apply it first in this direction, and then we'll tip it the way this way. So this is the first coat of a cross coat. We're going to do the entire wing like this, so just start at one point and just continue right on. Our first coat has been applied and it's dried. Depending on temperature, that can be anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. You can actually come back the next day, it really doesn't matter. The first coat we applied with the brush strokes lengthwise, and we tipped it sideways 90 degrees. Now the second coat with the foam brush, we're going to apply it sideways, and then we're going to tip it lengthwise. We're going to start with our over the tapes, just exactly like we did the first coat. We're going to start in the same place. You can still do your tape edges lengthwise. I like to do them first. Exactly the same. And then we'll come back now. This will start our cross application. We'll be applying the filler coat sideways. You'll find that the second coat actually goes on quite a lot easier than the first coat because the weave of the fabric is pretty well filled from the first coat. It seems as though you always have a few little places that don't quite fill, and that's why we really like to see 2 coats. And we can get that edge really good after we get that brush cleaned out a little bit so we don't get the run. That's very important because this, if you go around the edge with a full load, it will definitely run around to the underside and you won't see it until you turn the wing over. Okay, now we'll tip it lengthwise. Gets all the little bubbles out of it. It gives a very nice smooth finish when that dries. Okay, you can see that the second coat really starts to put a very nice fill. The color's starting to come into it, and it just gives a real nice appearance. And we'll just continue on and finish the rest of it. It's going very well. Okay, this is the last of the second coat with a foam brush on this wing. And we're going to do the other wing, put 2 coats on it, and then the next step we're going to come back and we're going to get the spray gun out. We're going to put a cross coat with a spray gun, and then we'll go from there. So that's the next step, is the spray gun application of the EkoFill. Yesterday we put on the 2 cross coats with a foam brush and we let that dry overnight. And today what we're going to do is we're going to spray on a cross coat with a spray gun prior to sanding and getting it ready for the last 2 cross coats with a spray gun. Before we spray it, we have to go over and need to make sure that any of the little foam particles from the foam brush, if they're in that finish from the cross coat of the brush, we have to remove those. So what we're going to do is take a small piece of 320 grit sandpaper. We're going to go over the entire wing. We're not really sanding it. What we're going to do is just, if there's any of those little foam particles, we need to get them off, because that will continue to build up and be rougher as we go. And if we do it right now, it only takes a few minutes, so we're going to do that. So let's go ahead and take the sandpaper, and what we want to do is just take off and just, basically what we're doing is just sealing the surface. And if there's any of those little particles or dust or whatever, it just wipes right off. We're not really sanding, we're just smoothing the surface prior to putting on the top coat. So we're going to do the entire wing like that, and as soon as we get finished with this, we'll come back and we're going to wipe it and blow it off with air. And then we're going to come back and we're going to put it in the spray gun and go ahead and put the next cross coat on it, and that's the next step of the finishing process. So we'll just go ahead and continue until we're all through, and then come back and we'll start spraying it. Okay, we've got the wing all sanded off and we're getting ready to put our cross coat with a spray gun. But now, since we've sanded it, what we need to do is to blow it off. We're going to use a terry towel that's it's about 18 inches square and compressed air, and what we're going to do is we're going to wipe and blow. So here we go. Okay, we'll go around to the other side of the wing and do the same thing. When we get all through, we'll go ahead and do that, and then we're going to come back, and then the next step, we're getting ready to start spraying. So that's where we're at this point. We're going to use the same EkoFill that we used with the foam brush on the first cross coat, and this, we're going to stir it up every time that we use any paint, regardless if it's an hour or overnight or whenever. Always stir it prior to using it. The EkoFill is ready to use right out of the container. It doesn't need to be thinned or reduced. So we're going to stir it up, we're going to use a paint filter, and we're going to put it in a spray gun. Then we're going to go spray our cross coat. We'll stir this for about 30 seconds or so. It doesn't take very long to get it stirred up. That's pretty good. We just did this yesterday, and it takes very little mixing if you use it every day. Okay, we're going to use a standard medium paint filter. What I used is just put it right in the paint gun and just lean this right over the edge of the bench and pour it in. It's real easy to do that. We'll put about a half a pot in there. Well, be careful you don't run it over. Okay, let's go spray. Okay, we're going to talk about how to set the spray gun up to spray our EkoFill. This is a DeVilbiss finish line spray gun. We're going to use a 1.5 millimeter spray nozzle, and we're going to set the air pressure with the fan control opened all the way up. That's the top knob. We're going to open as far as it'll go, and then we're going to pull the trigger, and we're going to set the air pressure to about 20 pounds. We want to be sure that the trigger's pulled when you set that, because if you set it with the trigger not pulled, when you start spraying, the pressure's going to drop off and you're not going to have enough. On the fluid control knob, you want to turn that all the way in, and this one has an index mark that you can see right here. If your spray gun doesn't have that, you need to take a magic marker or some kind of a pencil and put your line on there so you can see it. And what we want to do is open that one full turn. And once you do that, now this spray gun is ready to go. Okay, now the only thing we need at this setting, you're not going to have a lot of overspray, but we're going to wear a standard charcoal respirator, and I usually don't wear long sleeve clothes when I spray EkoFill, but you can. Like I say, you're not going to have a whole lot of overspray. So I'm going to put the respirator on, we're going to turn on the exhaust fan, and I'm going to start spraying. We're going to start with the perimeter and go all the way around. We're going to catch the edges first, and then we're going to start with our first cross coat sideways, and I'll go immediately from there. We'll turn the wing over, we'll do the edges again, I'll do the top side, and then we'll continue right on, because by then the first coat will be dry enough for the second coat, which will be the end of the first cross coat of the spray job. And then we're going to rotate the nozzle 90 degrees, and we're going to go up and down for that cross coat. And so here we go. We've got the exhaust fan on, and I'm going to go ahead and set the air pressure now. Like I showed you a minute ago, we're going to turn the fan control all the way on. We're going to pull the trigger, and we'll open this up to where I get about. That's good right there. Okay. Okay, we've just flipped the wing back over. We're going to do around the edges again. We always do the edges prior to doing the surface. So we're going to do the edges, now we're going to catch the top side, and that'll be the first coat of the cross coat, and then we'll continue on from there. now on a wing like this that has a tank bay in it, we've got the first coat of the cross coat finished. We're going to come back now before we continue. We're going to go ahead and spray inside of here because we want to really treat inside of this tank bay with our EkoFill. So I'm going to do that next. Okay, and what that does, it gives that fabric some really good protection in the case that you have a tank that leaks. We're going to go ahead and start the second coat of the first cross coat, and this wing has been just a few minutes from the time we did the tank bay until now. And normally you can put one coat right after the other of the EkoFill. It's not a big wait time between them. As soon as it goes from damp looking to dull looking, it is ready for the next coat. And that's the way this wing is right now. So we're going to go ahead and put we're going to do the edges again. Then we're going to rotate our nozzle 90 degrees and go vertically this time, and that'll be the cross coat. Okay, I'm going to loosen this nozzle now, and we're going to rotate this 90 degrees because now we want the fan to come out sideways because we're going to go up and down with this next coat.
rotate the tip back to the flat position to do the edges. Then when we get ready to do the top, we'll put it back like it is now. It makes it a lot easier to do the edges with it with the fan control in the vertical. Okay, that's the end of the first cross coat with a spray gun. And at this point now, we're going to let the wing dry. We're going to do the second wing. Then we're going to come back and we're going to sand the entire wing panel, both of them, with a 320 grit open coat sandpaper. And then we're going to blow it off the same as we did before. Then we're going to put 2 additional cross coats. Now remember, this was 1 cross coat. So after it's sanded and thoroughly cleaned, and any tape edges or anything that's sticking up that needs ironed down, go ahead and do that. Then we're going to come back and we're going to spray 2 more cross coats exactly like we just did this one. And then we're ready for our top coat and our finish. And we're going to get into the sanding portion of it next. And then we'll show you what we want it to look like prior to the last 2 cross coats. Okay, we're all finished spraying, and now the nice part of our system is the cleanup. So we're going to just pour what was left right back in the container that it came out of. It can go right back in there. We'll open up the fluid control so it'll drain back. Just put the lid back on it, and then we're going to clean the spray gun in the sink using just standard tap water. EkoFill clean is very easy. It'll have a little bit of a buildup. What I like to use is just a little soft brush. With the water running, you can just gently brush that nozzle, and that just cleans that right up where it was exposed to the air. The inside part of the gun is not so bad because it wasn't exposed to the air, and it cleans right up. And that's it. It's ready for next time. Our cross coat with the spray gun is dry, and we're getting ready to sand this. And what we want to do is take a heat iron, set it about 250 degrees, and we're going to go around and we're going to iron all of the tape edges. And the reason for that is because we don't want to remove our filler coat from the finish, particularly around the tape edges. So what we're going to do, instead of sanding it off, we're going to come around with this heat iron, and we're going to just run that edge right along the iron. Let me show you right here. We're going to just run this iron right along the tape edge. And what that's doing is pushing that finish from the top down in between. And so when we come back and sand it, it takes very little sanding to be quite smooth. And so we're going to do the whole wing like that. Then we're going to come back with 320 grit sandpaper, and we're going to lightly sand it and get it ready for our final 2 cross coats. You want to be sure that you don't linger on these tapes because they're not shrunk, and if you keep that iron on there too long, or if you go too slow, it's going to shrink the edges back, and we don't want to do that. So don't go too slow. And as you get better at this, you can actually turn the iron up a little bit hotter and go a little bit faster, and it makes this job really easy. If you haven't done it before, go ahead and start your iron at about 250 degrees. And then I'm going to go ahead and actually turn this one up just a little bit more because I want to go a little bit faster. It's a long ways around. And just let the tip of the iron touch the pinked edges. You don't want the heel of the iron, just the tip. We'll do this half, and then we'll go around the other side and do the other half. Then we'll flip it over, and then we'll start sanding.
this is the bottom of the wing, and I've gone around and I've completely ironed all of the tape edges, and I've sanded some of this so you can see a little bit of the contrast, and I'll go ahead and get the sandpaper and go over that on how to sand this to where it doesn't damage anything. And there's the sandpaper that we use. This is a 320 grit. It's a 3M open coat, and the open coat seems to work the best because the filler won't plug up the sanding grit. It just dusts off and works really nice. The important part of sanding this prior to putting on the next two cross coats is that you sand just on the tape edges first, and then come right on into the open area and just sand enough to get to smoothness. We don't want to take the filler coat off. All we want to do is make it smooth. At this point, when this sanding is finished, at this point we're halfway through on this wing of the preparation for the finish coat. In other words, we'll have 2 cross coats of filler coat on here. We've sanded it once, and as soon as this sanding is finished, we're going to be ready to put on 2 more sprayed cross coats, and that will be ready then for the final sanding just prior to our top finish coat. The thing that you want to watch is that anything that you sand or any place, there's little screw heads and things that are sticking up. You want to be very careful that you don't sand through the filler coat, and particularly out in the area of the bays, if there's a piece of structural metal underneath and you push down and you sand real hard, you can cut through that filler coat and actually can cut the weave of the fabric, and so you want to be very careful on that. On the rib stitches where they stick up, try not to even sand over those at all. I like to just sand right in between them. And don't sand them, because even going in between, you get enough of the sanding over the top that they're smooth. And that's very important. On inspection rings, you can sand them in a circular motion. And there again, it just takes very little sanding. Our EkoFill sand is very easy, and it goes on so smooth that actually all we're doing is just taking the surface, a little bit of the roughness off, and what's left underneath is extremely smooth. Okay, this wing is sanded now. We're going to blow it off, we're going to wipe it off, and it's ready then to spray the last 2 cross coats. We're going to spray those exactly the way that we just sprayed the other wing on the cross coats. Do it exactly the same way. And we're going to wait, we'll finish the other wing, and then when we come back we're going to be ready to start the final sanding, and then we'll get ready for the finish coat. We finished putting the last 2 cross coats of EkoFill on the wings and let that set overnight, and I've just completed the sanding on this wing, and we're getting ready to put the final 2-part polyurethane top coat on it. And on the last sanding, it's not necessary to iron all of the tape edges, but you do want to have an iron ready in case there's one of the pinked edges sticking up. And but normally it sands really fast. Use the 320 grit open coat sandpaper the same as on the first sanding. So we're going to go and get ready and start putting the top coat on this wing. This video is a demonstration of the Stewart Systems 2-part waterborne polyurethane paint. We are demonstrating painting a fabric covered wing, but the procedure is the same for metal or fabric. It really makes no difference. So let's get started. The wing is totally ready to paint. We have it sanded, it's wiped down, the spray room floor prior to bringing the wing in has been wet down. So the only thing we have left to do is get everything ready prior to start painting, and that's where I'm going to take a minute and go over the steps of preparation. You want to get your paint totally mixed. You want to get your mixing containers out. You need one for the part A, you need one for the part B, and you need one for the distilled water. In the paint, you need your paint filters, you need your spray gun, and prior to mixing, we're going to take the spray gun out and we're going to put some water in it. We're going to test the spray pattern. That's very important that we do that. We're going to take our respirator. Since we've had it for some time and we've been spraying EkoFill and different things, with a 2-part polyurethane paint, it's very important that we have a really good respirator. So we're going to change the cartridges out and put new charcoal canisters on it prior to the painting. We're going to put on our Tyvek suit. This paint is not hazardous, but it will stick to you, so I don't want paint on my arm. So I'm going to wear this paper suit to protect the overspray from my skin. So we'll take this a step at a time. Everything has to be done prior to mixing the paint. Once you mix your paint, then you don't want to do anything else but just start spraying. So we'll take these one step at a time. First of all, we're going to check the spray gun and see how it does. Okay, the first thing we're going to do to make sure that we're ready is check our spray gun. So we're going to plug the air into it. We're going to open the fan control all the way open. We're going to shut the fluid control completely off. We're going to pull the trigger and set our airflow at 20 to 25 pounds. Okay, on our 2-part polyurethane we have a 1.3 millimeter spray nozzle installed, and we're going to set on our initial spraying, we're going to open this fluid control knob 3/4 of a turn. That's where we'll put our first coat, and we have water in it, so water will tell us if the spray pattern is what we want. So with water, I have a nice full wide spray pattern, so our spray gun is good to go. We'll just take the water and go ahead and put it on the floor. We already have our floor wet down, so a little bit more water is not going to hurt a thing. Then we want to dry the water out. When we mix our paint up, we don't want any water down in the bottom of it. So, okay, our spray gun is ready to go and it's dried out. So now we'll go get our respirator ready to go and then put on our Tyvek suit. On our charcoal respirator, we're installing brand new charcoal cartridges. We want to make sure that the air that we breathe is nice and clean. So if your respirator has any age at all, be sure to replace the charcoal canisters or replace your mask altogether. We're going to put on our Tyvek suit next. That keeps our arms covered and keeps the overspray off of us. Then we're going to mix paint. The next step after we have our suit on is to get the paint mixed up. That's the part A of the 2-part polyurethane, so we want to be sure that it's thoroughly stirred. And then we have 3 separate mixing containers and a large one. So today we're going to mix up 21 ounces of part A, 7 ounces of part B, and then we're going to put 5 ounces of distilled water. Then we're going to put all those in here. You need to be sure that you have a mixing vat that's large enough for all 3 parts combined. Okay, we've dispensed and pre-measured our 21 ounces of part A, our 7 ounces of part B, and our 5 ounces of water, and we have our viscosity cup handy. So we're going to go ahead and pour our part A in. And then we're going to stage these mixing containers because 21 ounces will not paint the entire wing through the all 2.5 cross coats. So we're going to stage everything. We're going to come back in at the end of the 3rd coat and we're going to mix some more paint. So everything will be nice and handy here because we don't want to spend a whole lot of time remixing. So we're going to start a little bit of agitation. We're going to start mixing this up and then we're going to put the catalyst right in it while we're stirring. And this will go from a thin bodied paint to a very thick. It takes a couple minutes to stir it together. And I like to see the paint from the time the catalyst is mixed until the water is in place and the viscosity set at 20 seconds. I like to have that all done in about 5 minutes. From the time you do this right now, we should be spray painting in about 5 minutes. Be sure that it's thoroughly stirred. You can tell when it's thoroughly mixed because it gets very shiny and creamy, and you want to stir it until it does that. If it looks a little bit little rough texture, a little orange peely look to it, it's not thoroughly mixed with the catalyst. You can tell now that's ready to go right there. That's nice and mixed. It's very creamy and smooth. That's what we're looking for. Okay, we'll go ahead and put the water in. We're not going to put all the 5 ounces. We're going to put in just about probably 4 ounces, and then we're going to check the viscosity. We don't want to get it too thin. The worst thing you can do is to over thin the paint and have the viscosity too light. We want 20 seconds. The first little bit of water that goes in takes a few minutes to stir it in, and after that it goes right in, and additional water mixes really quickly. Okay, that's nice and mixed. Now it's time to check viscosity. We're going to use the DuPont M50 viscosity cup. We'll totally submerge it into the paint. We'll get our second hand on our watch out. We want 20 seconds, and we're going to time the full stream. So we'll start right there. Here's 5 seconds. We're going to be a little heavy, it looks like. And that's fine. We don't care if it takes 2 or 3 tries. We want to be sure that we're not too heavy or too light. 20 seconds is just right. Okay, there's 20 seconds and we still have quite a bit of paint in there. So we're going to go ahead and put the rest of the water in there. It's going to take we won't put it all in. It's real easy. Once it gets to a certain point, it doesn't take much water to reduce it on down. Okay, we're ready to check it again. Let's see what we got. We'll start it right there. There's 5, 10, there's 15 seconds, 17, 18, 19, 20. And we're still flowing. We're just a little bit heavy yet. We're going to put just a little bit more in. So it looks like we had just about the right amount of water with the 5 ounces with the 7 ounces of catalyst is going to be really close to just right. We'll go ahead and stir that in. We'll try this one more time. We should be pretty close this time. There's 5, 10, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. We have 21 seconds. Okay, our target was 20 seconds and it came in at 21 seconds, and we're going to let it go at that. Our target is what we shoot for. 21 seconds is really good. I really don't want to see it go less than 20. Occasionally you can go to 19, but let's shoot for 20 seconds and settle and be happy with 21. That's right where we want it. We're going to use our paint filter. We're going to go ahead and pour the paint. At this time we'll pour it through the paint filter and right into the hopper. Our gun is already set, so as soon as we put this in, we're ready to start painting. Okay, we're going to put the container in the sink and let it go ahead and just let a little bit of water flow over it to clean while we're spraying. We're going to come back at the end of our third coat. It'll be all cleaned up and ready. And don't forget the M50 cup. We want to be sure to clean that as well. We're going to position the wing, and we want to start out by painting the edges first. We'll go all the way around the perimeter because the edges are real important. It seems like it's real easy to get a light spot. And then when you come to these little areas, the little projections and things sticking out, we want to go around those really well the first couple coats or so. And then in the later stages, when you're on your final coat, you won't have to do that. You'll have enough paint around on the first few times around. We're going to paint those edges every time we rotate the wing. In other words, we're going to paint the edges first. We're going to paint the bottom. Then we're going to lay the wing back flat. We're going to paint the edges again. Then we're going to paint the top side. And we're going to do that every time. Between coats, we're going to catch the edges, and the reason for that is because your spray gun is only putting one pass, where on the wing every pass only covers a couple inches or so, 2 or 3 inches, and you're getting more paint buildup. So if we don't double up on those edges, we're going to have a light spot. Now in this first pass on the wing, this is our first coat, we're going to go a little bit fast, and we'll get down in just a minute. We're going to go a little fast and make a little bit too wide of a space between the coats, and that's what we call tiger striping. And that's the one thing that you really don't want to see on a paint job. Now you can get by with that on the first or second coat, but on the final coats that's going to start showing through, and you're going to have a paint job that will show. Now on this next pass, you'll start to see those tiger stripes I'm talking about coming in right there, those little light spots in there. That's what you want to try not to have. So after we get through this panel, we'll tighten that up and get rid of those. That's caused from either moving the gun too fast or moving too far apart from one pass to the next. You can also get a little bit of that if you get the gun too close, but as you can see now, I backed the gun out a little bit and those tiger stripes are going away. That's what you want on the first pass right there. When we're painting with our two-part waterborne polyurethane paint, every coat is the same. In other words, the spray gun wants to move the same speed, the spacing wants to be exactly the same. The only thing that we're going to do different is that we're going to turn the fluid control knob up on the spray gun at each additional coat. And we'll explain to that more about that in just a minute. When we start the second coat, we'll talk about that. Okay, we finished the bottom, first coat on the bottom. We laid the wing down flat, and we're going to round the edges again. This will get the second half or the top half of the edges, but also we're going to double up on part of it that we've already sprayed. What we've done is blended the leading edge into the bottom part where we sprayed on the other side, so it's totally covered. Now we're coming up around the leading edge about 10 inches, so when that's vertical, we don't have to get clear down to the floor in order to get the paint job on there. Just makes your paint job a lot easier. One other thing to pay attention on this first coat that's sideways, you'll notice that I'm covering from the end into the end of the aileron bay. Now on the third coat, when we go sideways again, we're going to stop at a different rib. Every time that you do a side coat, don't stop at the same area every time. Change that up so you don't have a heavy buildup from starting and stopping. On this particular spray gun, and most quality spray guns, they have a two-stage trigger. When you pull the trigger back to the first stage, your air is going to come on, and when you pull it all the way back, your paint is going to come on. Now, although it sounds like that this trigger is never being released, it actually is. At the end of each stroke, I'm letting up on the trigger and stopping the paint. And then when I get down and start the gun in motion, that trigger's being pulled. So you want to try to practice that. Don't leave that trigger completely pulled while you're trying to put your paint on, because you'll get a buildup at the end of each pass. So that takes a little bit of practice if you're not used to painting. And leave the air on all the time. Don't let up on the air to where it stops. Okay, now that's the end of the first coat. We're going to lay that wing back down flat with the bottom side up. We're going to open the fluid control knob an additional 1/8 of a turn. and we're going to go around the edges again. We want to rotate your nozzle, so now instead of the fan being vertical, it's sideways, because we're going to go up and down, and this will be the first cross coat. This is the second coat, but it's the end of the first cross coat. We're going to keep the spray gun going the same speed, the same overlap. We want to be sure that between each coat that doesn't change. It takes a little bit of practice, but that spray gun has to be the same speed and distance every time. The wing that we're painting happens to be a Piper Colt. To give you an example, it's about 13.5 feet long with approximately a 5-foot cord. It's taken us 10 minutes to go completely around the edges twice, top and bottom, for the first coat, and it'll take us 10 minutes for each additional coat. And the reason that's important is that on a 2-part polyurethane paint, on our paint, we have an hour pot life under normal conditions, and so we should be able to paint this entire wing, all 4 coats, and mix paint in about 45 minutes. So we have plenty of time. That's why we don't like to linger or waste time. If things aren't ready, we lose that pot life. So it's, if you have everything ready, you have plenty of time to give it all 4 coats and have a real nice paint job. We're going to lay the wing back flat and then rotate your cup or your nozzle back to the vertical when you do the edges. It's too hard to do if you leave it flat. So I've rotated it back to the vertical. We'll go all the way around the edges. And then when we get back and swing that wing back up to the vertical, we're going to rotate that nozzle back to the flat position. We're about to finish the first cross coat, and we're still working on the same hopper of paint that we started with. We mixed 21 ounces plus the catalyst and the water, and that's enough paint to put the first 3 coats on this wing. That'll be a cross coat and a half. So we won't have to mix any more paint until we get the next coat on, or finish the next coat rather. Okay, we're going to rotate the wing flat again. We're going to change the nozzle back to the vertical position, and we're going to open our fluid control nozzle an additional 1/8 of a turn. At the end of this third coat, our wing should be totally white. In other words, we're painting insignia white. There should be no coloration of the filler coat showing through, or primer if we were painting an aluminum airplane. This should be it should be solid white, and at the end of this coat you should have a nice shine starting to develop. On this particular wing, the bottom of the outboard wingtip slopes upwards. So when you paint the very last outboard area, be sure to let that spray gun follow that contour around. Don't just let it go out. Be sure to keep the same distance on the spray gun as you wrap around that edge. As I mentioned before, when you change and go to this third coat, you'll notice that I'm about 2 rib bays shy of where the first coat left off. And that's what you want to do so you don't stop that spray gun the same time. So you won't have a heavy buildup in that one area. It just makes a nicer paint job. Our paint, when properly applied, will not have a shine behind the gun. When you put it on, it's going to be a little dull looking, and that is what we want. That shine will develop within just a few minutes after it's applied. And the beauty of that is that you're not putting on so much paint that you have to worry about runs. It's very difficult to get a run with our 2-part polyurethane waterborne paint.
Okay, that's the end of the third coat, so we're going to go inside and mix up some more paint and then come back out. By that time, this will be tacked off. We're going to test that before we start painting. We're going to touch it with the back of our finger on the back side. It feels real nice and sticky, and maybe just a little paint transfer on the back of my finger. Then we'll go ahead and open the gun up another quarter of a turn, and we'll put the fourth coat on it, and we'll see what it looks like. Okay, I just mixed up another batch of paint, another 21 or 22 ounces, and we're going to test this now because you can see from the end of the third coat we have a nice shine starting to develop. This next coat is really going to put some depth to it, and we want to touch this with the back of our finger, and that feels really sticky. And as you can see, I'm getting just a little bit of a transfer on my finger, so I think we're going to let this set for just another minute or two, and then we'll start. Okay, our wing's ready to go. We're going to open our paint control knob an additional quarter turn this time. We're going to go right back around the edges. This will be the coat that really puts a nice finish on our wing. You can put the fifth coat on, but normally we'll do that if it's a repaint job or if your surface preparation wasn't the best and you want a little bit better hiding qualities of the paint job. You'll have to wait quite a bit longer after the fourth coat. It will take it several minutes longer to dry than the third coat before you can put the fifth coat, and it will take considerably more paint. If you do put the fifth coat on, do not change your gun setting. Leave it exactly where it is where we're putting on this fourth coat.